4 things in this video that will change how you look at every wall, window, and roofline. Why a thick brick wall is actually a cooling machine. The geometry trick that shades summer sun but not winter. What killed passive cooling and who profited from it? How much of summer an unmodified house can survive without AC? On the hottest day of the year, an Amish farmhouse in Lancaster County sits at 74 degrees. Outside it is 96. No air conditioning runs. No electrical unit hums. The windows are open. That is the entire system. What the Amish figured out, and what modern builders largely abandoned, is a set of passive cooling techniques so effective that some houses stay 20 degrees cooler than the air outside for free all summer long. This video is about how they work, why we stopped using them, and how you can bring them back. Here is the number that matters. The average American household spends about $265 a year running central air conditioning. That is roughly 12% of total home energy expenditures. Across the country, residential cooling accounts for about 254 billion kilowatt hours per year, according to the most recent Energy Information Administration Residential Energy Consumption Survey. We built an entire energy infrastructure around one problem, summer heat, that our great-grandparents solved with wood, shade, and airflow. The question is not whether the old methods worked. They clearly did. The question is whether they work well enough to matter today. The Amish are a useful reference point precisely because they are not historical. They are living right now in the same climate you live in, facing the same summer heat. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania averages about 23 days per year above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Humidity runs high. It is not the desert Southwest where dry heat is easier to manage. It is the sticky, heavy mid-Atlantic summer. And yet documented temperature readings inside Amish homes consistently show interior temperatures well below outdoor ambient air. These are not anecdotes. They are measurable outcomes of specific design choices. So, what are those design choices? There are 7 of them. Each one does something different. Together they create a system, and the word system matters here because none of them work as well alone as they do in combination. Today we will go through all 7. We will look at the physics behind each one, the historical context in which each technique developed, and the practical ways you can apply them to a house that already exists. You do not need to build from scratch. Most of these can be retrofitted. Before we get into the techniques, it helps to understand how heat actually enters a building. There are 3 pathways. Conduction, heat moving directly through walls and roofs when the outside surface is hotter than the inside. Radiation, the sun's energy hitting a surface and converting to heat, even when the air is cool. And convection, warm air physically moving into the building through gaps, windows, and doors. Every passive cooling technique in the Amish toolkit targets one or more of these 3 pathways. Once you see it that way, the techniques are not folk wisdom. They are applied physics. The first technique, and the one most people overlook, is roof color and material. An Amish barn roof, painted white, or left as unpainted wood, reflects roughly 60% of incoming solar radiation. A standard dark asphalt shingle roof absorbs up to 90%. That absorbed energy becomes heat. It conducts through the roof decking into the attic and radiates downward into the living space. Studies from the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory found that cool roofs can lower roof surface temperatures by up to 50 degrees Fahrenheit under peak conditions. Oak Ridge National Laboratory simulations found attic temperatures reduced by up to 30 degrees Fahrenheit compared to conventional, dark roofs. The second technique is deep roof overhangs. Traditional Amish and pre-modern American farmhouses have roof overhangs that extend 24 to 36 inches beyond the wall. Modern tract housing typically has overhangs of 6 to 12 inches, or none at all. The overhang serves a precise geometric function. In summer, the sun is high in the sky, around 70 degrees above the horizon at noon in Pennsylvania. A 24-inch overhang on a standard 8-foot ceiling wall will shade the entire south-facing window during peak midday heat. In winter, When the sun drops to 25 degrees above the horizon, that same overhang lets full sunlight in through the glass. Think about what that means. The overhang is a passive solar switch. It does not require any adjustment, any motor, any sensor. The geometry of the Earth's axial tilt does the work automatically. Builders before the 20th century understood this. It is documented in pattern books going back to the 1840s. Andrew Jackson Downing, who wrote one of the most widely read American architecture guides of the 19th century, specified overhang depths by latitude. He knew exactly how much shade you needed at 40 degrees north versus 30 degrees north. That knowledge did not disappear. It just stopped being taught in mainstream construction. The third technique is thermal mass. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive one. Thermal mass refers to materials that absorb heat slowly and release it slowly. Stone, brick, rammed earth, thick plaster. In a well-designed house, thermal mass works as a buffer. During the day, it absorbs heat that would otherwise raise the air temperature. At night, when outdoor air cools, the mass releases that stored heat back out through open windows. The result is that interior temperatures stay relatively stable, cooler than outside during the day, slightly warmer than outside at night. The swing is damped. Amish houses use brick and stone extensively, particularly in the foundation, ground floor walls, and cooking areas. A 12-inch brick wall has a thermal lag of roughly 8 to 10 hours. That means heat that hits the outer surface at noon does not reach the inner surface until 8 to 10 o'clock at night, by which time outdoor temperatures have dropped and ventilation can flush it out. Modern light frame construction with half-inch drywall has a thermal lag of less than 1 hour. The wall heats up almost instantly when the sun hits it. There is almost no buffer. You feel the heat the moment it arrives. The fourth technique is the sleeping porch, or more broadly, the understanding that different rooms serve different functions at different hours. Traditional farmhouses often had a sleeping porch on the north or east side of the house. This was a screened outdoor or semi-outdoor space where families slept during hot summer nights. The north-facing or east-facing orientation meant it received no direct afternoon sun. It caught night breezes. By sleeping outdoors, the family also reduced the heat load inside the house. Human bodies generate about 250 BTUs per hour at rest. 8 people sleeping indoors add 2,000 BTUs of heat to the interior overnight. The sleeping porch connects to a broader Amish principle, which is that you move through your house according to the sun. You cook in the morning before peak heat, you do heavy work outdoors in the early hours. During the hottest part of the afternoon, you are in the coolest room, typically an interior room or a basement, adjacent space, with the thickest walls and the least direct sun exposure. The house is not a single temperature zone, it is a set of microclimates. You inhabit different microclimates at different times of day. This is not hardship, it is how humans lived for thousands of years. The fifth technique is stack ventilation, and this one is pure physics. Hot air rises. If you have an opening low in the house and an opening high in the house, the hot air naturally flows upward and out through the high opening, drawing cooler air in through the low one. This works even when there is no wind. It works at night when outdoor air cools below indoor air temperature. Every traditional farmhouse used this principle. High gable vents, cupolas on barn roofs, upper-story windows left open at night, all of these are deliberate stack ventilation features. Cupola on an Amish barn is not decorative. It is an exhaust vent. The physics here is straightforward. The driving force for stack ventilation depends on two things: the height difference between the inlet and outlet, and the temperature difference between inside and outside air. For every 10 feet of height difference and a 10-degree temperature differential, stack ventilation can move a meaningful volume of air through the house continuously without any fan. In a 2-story farmhouse with a cupola, you might have 25 to 30 feet of height between the floor-level inlet windows and the cupola exhaust. That is a significant stack. It works around the clock, silently, with no moving parts and nothing to break. Stack ventilation becomes dramatically more effective when combined with the sixth technique, strategic window placement for cross-ventilation. This is not simply opening windows. It is about which windows on which walls at which heights. The ideal cross-ventilation setup positions inlet windows on the side of the house that faces prevailing summer breezes. In most of the eastern United States, that is the south or southwest. Outlet windows are placed on the opposite side, ideally slightly higher than the inlets. Air enters cool and low, sweeps through the living space, picks up heat, rises, and exits high on the far side. Traditional Amish and pre-modern farmhouses were almost always oriented with the long axis running east-west. This put the largest wall face, with the most windows, facing south. South-facing windows capture winter sun for passive heating. Combined with the deep overhang we discussed earlier, they are shaded in summer. The north face has fewer and smaller windows, reducing heat gain from hot north winds and unusual weather events. The west face is kept relatively closed to block the intense late-afternoon sun. The house is oriented like a solar instrument. The seventh technique is vegetation. Specifically, the use of deciduous trees on the south and west sides of the house. Deciduous trees lose their leaves in winter and grow them in summer. This means they shade the house precisely when you need shade and allow sunlight through in winter when you need warmth. Carefully positioned trees can reduce a household's energy use for cooling by up to 25%, according to the U.S. Department of Energy, and a well-planned landscape can reduce an unshaded home's summer air conditioning costs by 15 to 50%. Amish homesteads almost universally have large hardwood trees, oak, maple, elm, placed on the south and west exposures. There is also a ground-level version of this. Amish kitchen gardens are typically planted close to the house on the south and east sides. Low plants, tomatoes, pole beans on trellises, do not shade the roof. But they do something else. Plants release water vapor through their leaves as they photosynthesize. A dense kitchen garden of 200 square feet can release several gallons of water vapor per day on a hot afternoon. That evaporative process cools the air immediately surrounding the garden by 5 to 10 degrees. That cooler air then gets drawn into the house through low south-facing windows. Now, why did we abandon all of this? The answer is faster and more complicated than most people assume. Central air conditioning was not widely available in residential buildings until the late 1950s and early 1960s. Before that, passive cooling techniques were not optional. They were the only option. When window units became affordable in the 1960s and central systems followed in the 1970s, builders had a choice. They could design houses that used passive cooling as the primary system, supplemented by mechanical cooling. Or they could design houses entirely around the mechanical system and ignore passive design. They chose the second path. The reason was economics, but not the economics you might expect. Passive cooling features cost more upfront. Deep overhangs require more lumber. Thermal mass means brick and stone instead of light frame wood. Strategic tree planting takes years to mature. Orienting a house for solar gain requires a site plan that works with the lot's compass orientation, which limits how many houses you can fit on a subdivision grid. Every one of these features added cost or complexity to the construction process. A window air conditioning unit cost $350 in 1965. That was the cheaper solution at point of sale. What the economics did not account for was operating cost over time. A house built with passive cooling features in 1920 required no electricity for cooling for the next 80 years. A house built in 1970 with central air started running up electricity bills immediately and continued every summer for decades. The passive house was more expensive to build and vastly cheaper to operate. The air-conditioned house was cheap to build and expensive to operate. Builders who sell the house and move on chose the option that minimized their cost. Buyers who were dazzled by the convenience of mechanical cooling did not push back. There is also a cultural dimension. Air conditioning became a status symbol. A house with central air was modern. A house that relied on open windows and thick walls was old-fashioned. Real estate listings in the 1960s and 70s used central air as a selling point, the way they now use granite countertops. The passive cooling features that had been standard in quality American housing for a century became associated with poverty, with the houses that could not afford air conditioning. That association is still with us. It shapes what buyers want and what builders build. Meanwhile, the Amish continued building the way they always had, not out of stubbornness and not because they were unaware of air conditioning. The Amish are pragmatic. They use what serves the community. Mechanical air conditioning requires connection to the electrical grid, which most Amish communities do not use in the home. So they had no choice but to keep refining passive techniques. And because they kept building and living in traditionally designed houses, the knowledge stayed alive. It was not preserved in books or academic papers. It was preserved in the hands of builders and in the lived experience of families. Now we turn to the practical question. You probably live in a house that was built without any of these features. What can you actually do? Let us go through the 7 techniques again, ranked by ease of implementation and cost. Some of these are free to start today. Others require a weekend and a modest budget. A few require a longer investment. None of them require a contractor or a permit for the basic versions. Start with your windows, because this is free and takes 10 minutes. The single most impactful thing most people can do immediately is to change how they use their windows. Close all windows and exterior blinds before 8 in the morning during hot weather. Keep them closed through the hottest part of the day, typically 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., when outdoor air begins to drop below indoor temperature, open windows on opposite sides of the house. Let the cooler night air flush through. Close again before dawn. This cross-flush cycle alone can reduce average daytime interior temperature by 4 to 8 degrees in a typical house. The reason most people do not do this is that it requires changing habits. You have to think about the house as a heat-managing system rather than a static enclosure. The house has a thermal history over the course of the day. What you do at 7 a.m. affects what the temperature is at 3 p.m. This is the same mindset Amish families internalize from childhood. They do not think of it as effort. It is simply how you use a house in summer. It becomes automatic within a week. Next, address your windows from the outside. External window shades, shutters, exterior roller blinds, or removable canvas awnings. Stop solar radiation before it enters the glass. This matters because once sunlight passes through glass and becomes heat inside the room, it is trapped. Glass lets short-wave solar radiation in but blocks long-wave infrared radiation from escaping. That is the greenhouse effect at window scale. An external shade stops the solar energy before it crosses the threshold. An internal curtain, even a white one, stops only about 40% of the heat that has already entered. External shading stops 70 to 90%. Exterior shutters are the traditional solution. They are what every pre-air conditioning house in hot climates used, from the American South to the Mediterranean to Southeast Asia. You can buy functional exterior shutters for most standard window sizes for $80 to $150 per window. Louvered shutters allow some airflow while blocking direct sun. Board and batten shutters provide maximum shade. In Lancaster County, Amish homes almost universally have functional shutters, not the decorative non-functional shutters nailed flat to the siding that appear on modern suburban houses, which shade nothing and are purely cosmetic. Now consider your roof. You cannot change your roof tomorrow. But when your roof needs replacement, every 20 to 30 years for most asphalt shingles, the choice of color and material makes a measurable difference. Light-colored asphalt shingles, metal roofing painted white or light gray, or genuine cool roof products with high solar reflectance can reduce attic temperatures by up to 30 degrees Fahrenheit compared to standard dark shingles, according to Oak Ridge National Laboratory research. That reduction ripples downward into the living space. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Energy Star program certifies cool roofing products. A cool roof on an average American house saves roughly 7 to 15% of annual cooling energy. If you cannot change the roof, address the attic. An attic acts as an insulating buffer between the hot roof and the living space, but only if it is properly ventilated. A sealed, unventilated attic can reach 150 degrees Fahrenheit on a hot day. That 150-degree surface radiates heat downward into your ceiling. Adding ridge vents at the roof peak and soffit vents at the eaves creates a stack effect in the attic itself. Cooler air enters at the soffits, heats up as it travels upward, and exits at the ridge. Properly ventilated attics run 20 to 30 degrees cooler than unventilated ones. This can be done by a contractor in a single day. Now, the climax of this entire system, the moment when all 7 techniques work together in a single 24-hour cycle. Picture a well-designed house on a 95-degree July afternoon in Pennsylvania. The deep overhangs are doing their job. No direct sun touches the south windows. The thick brick walls are quietly absorbing the heat, trying to conduct through them. The exterior shutters are closed on the west-facing windows. Inside, the house sits still. The air barely moves. The thermometer on the parlor wall reads 76 degrees. Outside, cicadas fill the air. The gravel on the lane shimmers. Somewhere across the fields, a windmill turns slowly above the barn. Then the evening comes. The sun drops behind the tree line on the west side of the house. The maples planted precisely there 60 years ago by the farmer who built the house. The outdoor temperature begins to fall. By 8 p.m. it is 82 degrees outside. Inside it is still 76. At 8:30 p.m. someone lifts the latch on the south-facing parlor window. Then the north window on the far side of the hall. A faint current of air moves through. By 10 p.m. the outdoor air is 74 degrees. By midnight it is 68. The house breathes out. The thermal mass in the walls slowly releases what it stored. By dawn, interior temperature is 72 degrees. The cycle begins again. That cycle is not magic. It is not folklore. It is a heat management system that works within the same thermodynamic laws that govern every modern air conditioner. The difference is that it uses no compressor, no refrigerant, no electricity. It uses geometry, mass, shade, and time. The cost of running it is zero. The maintenance required is opening and closing windows. The skill required is paying attention to the house's thermal rhythm over the course of a day. That skill was ordinary knowledge for most of human history. It was lost, or rather, it was replaced, within a single generation. The thermal mass piece deserves a retrofit path because most people cannot rebuild their walls in brick. There are accessible alternatives. Water is the most efficient thermal mass material per unit of cost. Filling dark painted containers, barrels, large ceramic pots, even 55-gallon drums with water and placing them in south-facing rooms creates thermal mass cheaply. A 55-gallon drum of water weighs about 460 pounds and stores roughly 5 times as much heat per pound as brick. Phase change materials, now available in panel form, take this further. They absorb heat as they melt and release it as they solidify, providing thermal buffering in a thin sheet. Vegetation is the most underused of all the techniques because the payoff is delayed. Planting a fast-growing shade tree today will not help you this summer, but a silver maple or a hybrid poplar planted on the west side of your house will reach useful canopy height in 5 to 7 years. If you are planning to live in the same house for a decade, and most American homeowners stay an average of 13 years, that tree will work for you for the majority of your time there. Deciduous shade trees also add approximately 3 to 15% to residential property values, according to multiple real estate studies. The shade is free. The value appreciation is a bonus. There is also a community dimension to this that modern thinking tends to miss. Amish farms are not isolated objects. They are part of a landscape that has been managed collectively over generations. The windbreaks, the hedgerows, the woodlots, these were placed with communal benefit in mind. A row of mature trees along the north boundary of a property breaks winter winds for the neighboring farm to the south. A shared woodlot cools the microclimate for everyone in its radius. Modern suburban development does not think in these terms. Each lot is treated as independent. The cumulative cooling effect of coordinated tree planting across a neighborhood is something almost no modern development captures. We should also address what passive cooling cannot do, because honest limits matter more than inflated claims. On an extreme heat event, when outdoor temperatures stay above 90 degrees for several consecutive days and night temperatures do not drop below 80, passive cooling alone is not sufficient for vulnerable people, the elderly, infants, those with certain medical conditions. In those conditions, which climate scientists expect to become more frequent over the coming decades, some mechanical cooling backup is genuinely important for health and safety. Passive cooling is not a replacement for emergency cooling access. It is a reduction in how often you need it and by how much. The honest picture looks like this. A house built with all 7 passive techniques in a mid-Atlantic climate can stay comfortable, below 80 degrees interior, for roughly 85 to 90% of summer days without any mechanical cooling. During the remaining 10 to 15%, a small window unit running for a few hours in the evening can bridge the gap. Compared to a standard modern house running central air continuously all summer, a passively cooled house with occasional mechanical backup uses roughly 70 to 80% less cooling energy. That is a real and achievable number. It does not require living without electricity. It requires building or retrofitting smarter. The Amish did not invent these techniques. Deep overhangs appear in classical Greek architecture. Thermal mass was used in Roman hypocaust systems. Stack ventilation features appear in Egyptian and Persian buildings 3,000 years ago. What the Amish did was preserve them and continue practicing them while the rest of American building culture walked away. Now, as energy costs rise and extreme heat events increase, what was dismissed as old-fashioned is being re-examined by architects, builders, and homeowners across the country. The passive house movement in Europe has built an entire certification system around many of the same principles. The knowledge was never lost. It just needed the economics to shift before people went looking for it again. 7 techniques: light roof, deep overhangs, thermal mass, sleeping and living zones by time of day, stack ventilation, cross ventilation through strategic window placement, deciduous shade trees on the south and west. Each one works on its own. Together they turn a house into a machine that runs on sunlight, shade, and the simple fact that warm air rises. No electricity bill, no compressor cycling on and off in the night, no refrigerant leak, no utility company involved. Just a house doing what houses were designed to do for most of human history: shelter you from the weather, including the heat. The question I want to leave you with is this: which of these techniques could you actually implement in your own home this summer, and what is stopping you?